The sun was setting over the Sea of Galilee, casting warm hues of gold and orange across the water. Gentle waves lapped against the shore as Jesus stood among his disciples, the crowd slowly dispersing after a day filled with teachings and healing. The day had been long, and the disciples were visibly exhausted. Yet there was a sense of peace in the air, a quiet calm that seemed to settle over the land as the last rays of sunlight began to fade. "Let us cross over to the other side," Jesus said, motioning toward the boat waiting by the shore. His voice was calm, unhurried, as though the events of the day had not wearied him. The disciples nodded, eager to leave the bustling crowds behind and find a moment of rest. The boat rocked gently as they climbed aboard, the wood creaking under their weight. Peter, ever the fisherman, took his place at the helm, while the others busied themselves preparing for the journey across the water. The Sea of Galilee was familiar territory for many of them, and the thought of sailing into the night did not trouble them. As the boat drifted away from the shore, the stars began to emerge, twinkling in the vast expanse of the heavens. The disciples spoke in hushed tones, recounting the events of the day, the healings, the parables, the faces of those whose lives had been changed. Meanwhile, Jesus found a quiet corner in the stern of the boat, laid his head on a cushion, and fell into a deep sleep. The sea was tranquil at first, the moon casting a silvery glow over the rippling waves. But as the night deepened, the wind began to pick up. It started as a soft whisper, then grew into a howling force that tore through the sails and churned the water into frothy, menacing peaks. Dark clouds rolled across the sky, obscuring the stars, and soon the gentle sea had transformed into a raging storm. The disciples, seasoned fishermen though some of them were, felt their hearts pound with fear. The boat was tossed like a leaf in the wind, waves crashing over the sides and threatening to capsize it. Peter shouted orders, his voice barely audible over the roar of the wind. Andrew and James struggled to keep the boat steady, their hands raw from gripping the ropes. In the chaos, one of the disciples glanced toward the stern of the boat and saw Jesus still asleep, undisturbed by the storm that raged around them. His calm in the face of such fury was almost unsettling. "Teacher," one of them cried, running to wake him, "do you not care that we are perishing?" Jesus opened his eyes, his expression serene despite the panic on the faces of his disciples. He rose slowly, steadying himself against the rocking boat, and walked to the bow. The wind whipped his robes and the rain lashed against his face, but he stood firm, raising a hand toward the sky. "Peace," he said, his voice cutting through the storm like a blade. "Be still." The effect was immediate. The howling wind ceased, the towering waves subsided, and the sea became as smooth as glass. The storm that had moments ago threatened to engulf them was gone, leaving behind only the quiet lapping of water against the hull of the boat. The disciples stood in stunned silence, their breath coming in ragged gasps. They looked at Jesus, then at each other, unable to comprehend what they had just witnessed. "Who can this be?" Peter whispered, his voice trembling, "that even the wind and the sea obey him?" Jesus turned to his disciples, his gaze calm but piercing. "Why are you so afraid, Rena?" he asked. "Do you still have no faith?" His words struck them like a wave, but not one born of fear. It was a wave of understanding, a revelation of the power and authority that lay within the one they followed. They had seen him heal the sick, cast out demons, and speak words of life. But this, commanding the very forces of nature, was a demonstration of power unlike anything they had ever imagined. As the boat drifted quietly across the now calm sea, the disciples sat in contemplation. Fear had given way to awe, and awe to worship. They realized that the one who slept through the storm was the same one who held the power to still it. In his presence, they were safe, no matter the tempest that raged around them. When the boat finally reached the shore, the disciples were different men. The journey across the stormy sea had not just been a physical passage, but a spiritual one. They had faced their fears, witnessed the power of God, and learned the importance of faith. Jesus stepped onto the shore, the first light of dawn breaking over the horizon. The storm was behind them now, but the memory of it, the fear, the awe, the peace would stay with them forever. They had seen the calm in the storm, and they knew that as long as they were with him, they would never have to face their fears alone.